Sri Lanka crisis and the latest lessons for Kenya. People sometimes worry, why do we have to compare Kenya with Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka is a small island of Indian Ocean, the country of India, south of the country of India. That is like, we can say, Madagascar is to the continent of Africa. It's a tiny island north of the equator, equally almost the same size, not the same size of Kenya, but that is the one having a crisis right now because the people rose up and ejected the president from office. And the reason why this country is getting such much attention that we have to talk about it, because even if it's a small country, of course, compared to Kenya, Sri Lanka is a very small country. If you put the size of Kenya, Sri Lanka is about 9 times smaller than Kenya. It has only 65,000 square kilometers, while Kenya has 580 square kilometers. So it's a big country. Why are we comparing it to this? But despite all these, this country, it has a big economy. Is not that small as you might think a country could be. It's when you compare actually the GDP of this small country is almost the one in Kenya, because when you compare the GDP of the two countries, Kenya actually has a GDP of 110 billion as about 2022. And Sri Lanka, even if it's small, has a GDP of 84 billion US dollars. So it has a reason why we compare the two countries. And what lessons can Kenyans learn as they are going to this election? Because there are good lessons that we have to learn from this country. The immediate former president who resigned, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he had to resign. He had to get away from when the people stormed to State House. Imagine people walk to State House and the president had to run. I wonder if this happens to Kenya, how many people could have died. The military could have shot them, but in this country, the true democracy exists, that they walked there, even they banned, they chased the prime minister and many other things in this country. And this is one of the things that we have to learn. Why this crisis? This is what happened. The country had a very serious crisis. Inflation is very high, unemployment is very high. And this is, people were annoyed. And I know, even in Kenya right now, inflation is very high and many other things. But this one, they walked to State House. They just, the president had to run away. In fact, if you see one of the pictures, the protesters went to, that is the presidential palace, State House, where the president was living, the swimming pool. Even protesters were swimming, enjoying, and nobody, there were no police chasing them. That we have to recommend, that there is greater democracy in this country, so there was nothing done for these people. But what lessons can we learn? This is a very small country. As you have seen, that is 9 times smaller than Kenya. Then what really happened? This started, actually the crisis started in 2005 when President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is the brother to the immediate outgoing president, the president who was just from office, was elected in 2005. And what he did when he came to office, he started overspending on a major project, building major roads, building international airports, and he built roads, railways, and then he started a big project. I built an international airport at Matara. That is his home region. The Rajapaksas come from the southern tip, Hambantota region. He used to be a member of Hambantota, a member of parliament in Hambantota. He built a big port in Hambantota and a big international airport, which that big airport with loans, they built with loans, that airport is the least busiest international airport in the world. Nobody is flying to Matara airport. Hambantota port, which was built by Chinese, they could not pay. When the new president came in after 2019, when he left, they tried to negotiate with China, and they had to sell that port because there was no need for a second port. Colombo port is still enough for the country. That was the problem. So we had a Hambantota port, which a lot of money was pumped there, and they say the Chinese were even paying to the family members of the Rajapaksa family. So they were getting money, and on top of that, they were printing money. You know, when you print money, you increase inflation. That is what he did before he left office. Actually, the president who followed him only went one time and found this is so difficult. Things that there was a huge debt left behind, and the things were not working. Most of the money which came from China went to this family, Rajapaksa family. So in 2019, his brother Gotabaya was elected president because they had the money, they have the influence, and they were able to win election again. So when they won this election, because of this, he printed money and borrowed his former brother. So when he came in, they followed the same family. And you know, he had to win election again. His brother became a prime minister. 5 of the family members were cabinet ministers. You can see why the people of Sri Lanka were they were not very happy what had happened. And then on top of that, he came with these populist ideas that he wanted no genetically modified food, that they didn't want to use fertilizer for growing rice, for growing tea, and many other things. So in 2021, they banned import of fertilizers. What happened? Rice production just went down more than 20%. The country had to import rice, a country which was once sufficient for rice. So people with that inflation, and you know, with this printing of money, and okay, the economy went up. Actually, according to World Bank, the country moved from lower middle class to higher middle class. So because of this printing of money, and with the pandemic, and the tourism industry was affected with the war in Ukraine, and actually most of the tourists were coming from Ukraine and Russia. All of these things coupled up, and that's why people went to the street, because of higher inflation. What can Kenya learn from this? Kenya can learn from this. When you choose a president, just people, some president can come with populist ideas, scrutinize everything they are saying, what they are going to do, and how they are going to do it. You see, one family controlled this. Why would you think if his brother had made a mistake, why would they elect his brother again to office? That's a lesson you have to know. Sometimes it's good, like we can have, like starting a matata pot. And I will say this for free, and I need to be corrected. We have had in Kenya some major project which we started, like SGR. The SGR, I mean, it's a great idea. But let us look at what cost was it built. If you compare SGR in Kenya, how much it costs to build a railway from Kenya to Naivasha, it's the double price for what the other country, the nearest country, Ethiopia did. What happened? That is some of the things you need to query. And ask yourself about the Naivasha inland port. Is it going to turn to be like Ambatota? Those are some of the lessons you have to learn, that there are some of these projects we used money. Would it be viable for that? That is when we are looking for leaders, and the leaders who are going to spend money. See, there was corruption here. A lot of money, the loans which were got from China, most of the money went to Rajapaksa family. That's why the Sri Lankan are bitter. So when the Kenyan voters are going, they should tune and see who will bring the reform, who will continue, because right now one of the things is that there was a lot of borrowing. What will happen if Kenya defaults? You know, when President Kibaki came to power, he was able to sustain the economy, and Kenya's credit rating went up. This is the credit rating which they used, the successful government used to borrow money. Are we going to sustain it? Are the action, who is going to deal with the huge debt the outgoing government has left? Those are some of the things we need to query ourselves and see who will be able, which leader will be able to make us navigate the future. And I hope this is a lesson, because putting a country in that position, that whereby one family controls the economy, it will be something wise to think about, and I think that's something we can learn from Sri Lanka. This time that Kenyan are going to the election, and I hope the Kenyan voters will